Chapter 92 Report 1. In the evening, it was already dark when Zhou and her husband returned home. They were exhausted after a day on the mountain. When they returned home, Gu Qingrui still had to head to their old house to see how the two patients were doing. If they were awake, he would be entirely at ease. Zhou moved some firewood out of her interspace and stacked it in the shed. Then, she simply washed her face and started a fire to cook dinner. The meal was simple. She stir-fried a plate of cabbage with vinegar, mixed it with a plate of mustard and fungus, and finally took out a roasted chicken from her interspace. She cut it up and put it on a plate. Finally, she cooked a small pot of rice and mung bean congee. When she was almost done, Gu Qingrui returned. She turned and asked, "Rui, how's it going over there?" "They're all awake but still weak and need to recuperate. I've brought them some medicine, you don't have to worry about the rest. I'll find some time tomorrow and remove their stitches." "Okay, go wash your hands. I'll set the table." "Alright, I'm so hungry that my chest is sticking to my back," Gu Qingrui said as he turned around to wash up. Zhou laughed and shook her head. She used to hear the old people say that youngsters would usually eat until they were poor. At that time, she had thought it was an exaggeration, but now she understood. He had eaten a big bowl of ramen at noon and half a pound of beef. She didn't expect him to be this hungry so soon. She looked at the food she had prepared as she thought of that. Finally, she took out 3 big steamed buns, cut them into pieces, and plated them after deep frying. After dinner, Gu Qingrui cleaned up the kitchen while Zhou entered her interspace and used her mental power to pick out 100 pounds of soybeans to soak in. Then, she braised 2 sets of pig offal. After they were done, the two of them were about to lie down and sleep when they suddenly heard Zhuang's bark and a faint knock on the door. Gu Qingrui was stunned for a moment. He put on his wool coat and walked out. When he came out, he heard a clear knock on the door, but it was not loud. He paused before walking over and asked, "Who is it?" "Dr. Gu, it's US Tiger and Leopard Brothers. We're here to report to you," Zhuang said in a low voice. Gu Qingrui recognized his voice, so he opened the door and let them in. He closed the door and led them into the house. When Zhou saw them come in, she stopped for a moment and said, "Please have a seat." She then poured a glass of warm water for each of them. The two of them looked at Zhou and smiled awkwardly. After taking the cup and sitting down, they drank it in one gulp. Gu Qingrui hesitated and said, "Can you go make a bowl of noodles for each of them?" Zhou nodded, turned around, and walked out. She went to the kitchen and made 2 big bowls of noodles for them with poached eggs. At the same time, Gu Qingrui refilled their glasses of water and asked, "Brothers, tell me, what did you find?" "We've investigated the strangers you mentioned in the village. They came from other villages to learn how to grow bean sprouts, and one of them was really into monitoring the people in the village. They mainly go back and forth between the oil mill and your house. However, this evening, we discovered that a servant girl from the Qiao family went to Widow Hua's house," Zhuang said. "A servant girl from the Qiao family? Are you sure she's a servant girl from the Qiao family?" "That's right. There's basically no one in this area that we don't know. That maidservant is from the manor on the other side of the river. She's the wet nurse of the Qiao clan's eldest daughter and has a very good relationship with her." Yes. Widow Hua's daughter, Chunhong, is a servant who cooks in their manor," Gu Erjiang chimed in. Chapter 93 Report 2. So that peach garden on the other side of the river belongs to the Qiao family and not the Lu family? Gu Qingrui asked in shock. After Zhuang and Gu Erjiang looked at each other, they both looked at him in surprise. However, when they remembered he had just returned from the capital and rarely went out, they understood his surprise. Gu Erjiang replied, "It's right to say it belongs to the Liu family. Miss Chiao's mother's last name is Liu. That manor is her mother's dowry." "I see." Gu Qingrui nodded thoughtfully. Then, Miss Liu, whom he had seen before, was most likely Miss Chiao. Thinking of this, his eyes flickered. "Did you find anything else?" he asked. "There's also the matter of people eyeing the braised intestine recipe you mentioned. The Chiao family is just one of them. There's also the Uli Inn, and their people have also inquired about it." Gu Qingrui quipped, "By the way, do you know what's going on with the Chiao family? Why does no one take action when they are being so ridiculous?" "You've asked the right person. About a month ago, we met the Chiao's butler's son, Chiao Yuan, in the casino. At that time, he was drunk and told us that the Chiao family had become rich and someone was protecting them. This time, the tables have turned, and it's the Gu family's turn to suffer." "Oh, did he say who it was?" "No, he just made a slip of the tongue. He refused to say it when I asked him later. However, I heard that the Chiao family sent generous gifts to the county mayor, and the mayor's wife has someone above her." "The wife of the county mayor?" "Yes, the wife of the mayor. I heard that even the mayor has to listen to her." "Is there any more?" "We have limited time, so," Qian Zhuang said with an awkward smile. "All right, you can continue to ask around. In addition, pay attention to any major movements of the Chiao family and remember to let me know in time." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he got up and went to the west room to take out a string of money and give it to them. "Go to places like tea houses and taverns where there are many more people gossiping. Listen more and ask less. Safety first. Don't worry, we two brothers will definitely get this done for you." Qian Zhuang immediately smiled and put away the money. At this time, Zhouing also came in with 2 big bowls of noodles and handed them to them. "Do eat up." Thank you, thank you." The two of them nodded and took the food, then began to eat it. Gu Qingrui told Zhouing the news he got from them after they left. "Babe, I'm afraid I've encountered a honey trap this time. You must protect me." "Go on." Zhouing glared at him, then said thoughtfully, "Elder Chiao can't wait to destroy the Gu family, so do you think he will let his daughter marry you? Isn't he afraid of inviting a wolf into his house?" Gu Qingrui laughed after hearing that. He raised his head and flicked her nose. "Smart. We've thought of the same thing, but we can make good use of this. It might give us a chance to catch our breath. Anyhow, we'll make our move after we find out who's behind the Chiao family. Then you will be the honey trap. If I have to use the honey trap, it should be on you. She's not worthy. Be careful not to fall into her trap instead," Zhouing said, rolling her eyes. Afterwards, she took the 2 bowls to the kitchen to wash them. Seeing this, Gu Qingrui smiled. For the sake of a peaceful life in the future, he had to be wary of Miss Chiao. The following day, just as Hongyun Restaurant had finished collecting their goods, Widow Hua's daughter, Chun Hong, came to their house and said, "Dr. Gu, Miss Liu asked me to bring you a message. She said that her ointment has been used up, and she wants you to go to the manor for a follow-up examination today." Chapter 94. A warning. After speaking, she turned her head and looked at Zhouing. When she saw her appearance, she was stunned. She had looked at her in a hurry before, and her first impression of her was of a timid, dark, and thin girl. Other than her height, there was nothing special about Zhouing. Zhouing was now fair and slender. Not only did she become beautiful, but she also had an indescribable aura that made others feel comfortable and a little scared. She was slightly more afraid of her than when she faced Miss Chiao. "Dr. Gu, remember to go," she said, quickly looking away. After saying that, she ran away in a hurry. "I'm that scary?" Zhou touched her face in surprise. She's the one who's weird. Gu Qingrui replied, then instructed, "I'll go there in a while and see what she's up to. You be careful at home." "I know. You be careful too." "I will." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he turned around and went back to pack his medicine kit. This time, he didn't only bring the common medicine but also a pack of knockout powder, a bag of powder mixed with devil pepper and mustard, as well as an air gun. Then, he walked out. After he left, De Hua and Tian Jiawang came in. Zhou and De Hua helped Tian Jiawang pack the goods he wanted. Then, Zhou called Tian Jiawang to the side and told him they had been stopped by the Qiao family yesterday. "If someone tries to cause you trouble, you don't have to help us. Just say what you must, and don't force it." "How can we do that?" Tian Jiawang shook his head repeatedly. Although he was a nobody, he was not an ungrateful person. If it weren't for the help of the couple, he would still be risking his life looking for wild animals on the mountain. How could he betray them? "Then, does Brother Tian know the recipe for braised meat?" Tian Jiawang was at a loss for words. It seemed that she was right. The things he knew were just on the surface level. Then, he nodded and said, "I understand." "Yup, safety first, De Hua, help your Aunt Zhou with her work. Uncle is leaving." After Tian Jiawang finished speaking, he pulled the small cart and went out. Zhou took De Hua to the kitchen and continued to make yuba. On the other hand, Gu Qingrui had not gone far from the village when he was stopped by 6 people who came out of the small forest by the roadside. Gu Qingrui saw that they were all holding sticks in their hands and immediately knew they were not friendly. Then, he turned sideways and quietly took out the bag of knockout powder and the air gun. At the same time, he asked, "What do you all mean by this?" "What do we mean?" The leader sneered and shook the stick in his hand, saying, "You know what you did yesterday, but you still dared to leave the village. You sure have guts. The Qiao family sent you." Gu Qingrui deliberately took 2 steps back in fear. As expected of someone who passed the scholar's exam, seeing through it so quickly. "Since you know who we are, obediently come with us, and save us the trouble of beating you up. You guys are absolutely unruly." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he turned around and ran away. At the same time, he turned back to look at them. When they caught up and gathered together, Gu Qingrui immediately threw the powder bag in his hands and shot through it with his air gun. Suddenly, the powder fell down like scattered flowers. The few of them heard the sound and immediately looked up, and the powder just happened to fall on their faces. A moment later, they fell to the ground like dumplings. Seeing this, Gu Qingrui went forward to check and ensure they were all unconscious. He rolled on the ground, staining his clothes with bits of grass and dust. Then, he messed up his hair and ran toward the manor over the river. Chapter 95 Discord Chuayer, who was waiting outside the manor, saw his sorry state and hurriedly greeted him. "Dr. Gu, what's wrong? Did you fall down?" Gu Qingrui did not answer her. Instead, he asked in an unfriendly tone, "Your family's young lad's surname isn't Liu, but Qiao, right?" Chuayer was shocked when she heard this. She then laughed dryly and replied, "Who told you that?" "My young miss," Gu Qingrui snorted coldly when he saw her avoiding his gaze. Then, he walked straight into the manor. Chuayer saw this and immediately chased after him, feeling uneasy. It seemed that the young lad's identity had been revealed. The 2 of them entered the main courtyard one after another. Miss Qiao happened to come out of the kitchen with a pot of iced pear juice. When she saw Gu Qingrui enter, she quickly greeted him warmly. "Dr. Gu, you're here. I've just made a pot of dessert for you to try." "Chuayer, go get a bowl," she said to Chuayer. After speaking, she called Gu Qingrui into the house with her. As soon as the two sat down, Chui'er hurriedly followed them with a bowl in her hand. Seeing that the two of them were still politely talking, she heaved a sigh of relief and went forward to get some dessert. Gu Qingrui placed the aloe vera cream on the table and looked at Miss Zhao. "Miss Liu, what's your surname?" Miss Zhao's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly looked at Chui'er, who was also stunned. Chui'er immediately shook her head with a bitter face. She was still puzzled about this matter, and didn't know who leaked it. "My surname is Zhao." "I was afraid," Miss Zhao gritted her teeth. "There's no need to say anything. The ointment has been delivered, so please pay the medical expenses. As for your illness, it's not really an illness. It'll be fine if you pay attention to your diet and personal hygiene. I'll be going back now," Gu Qingrui said with a straight face after he got up. "Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. When Miss Zhao heard his cold and emotionless words, her aggrieved eyes suddenly welled up with tears. "The grudges of the previous generation are between them, and it has nothing to do with us." Without waiting for her to finish, Gu Qingrui raised his hand and interrupted her. He said sarcastically, "Who would believe your words? Didn't you ask me to come here? But I didn't expect that you would send someone to attack me on the way when I was kind enough to send you the medicine." No, Miss Zhao immediately started to explain in a panic. However, Gu Qingrui had no intention of listening. Even after encountering that group of people today, he still risked coming here. To put it bluntly, he was clarifying his position and trying to sow discord between the father and daughter. "That's enough. You don't have to explain anymore. Anyway, it's impossible between us. We don't have to meet again in the future. Pay up." What, you even want to skimp out on the money for the medicine? No, then hurry up, Gu Qingrui said impatiently. Chui'er took out a piece of silver from her purse and said, "That should be enough." Gu Qingrui took the silver, carried the medicine kit on his back, and walked out. The speed at which he left was as if a dog was chasing him. Miss Zhao wanted to chase after him, but Chui'er immediately stopped her. "Please don't chase him, Mississippi. You won't be able to catch up." Miss Zhao immediately remembered that Chui'er had taken the initiative to pay. She turned her head and raised her hands to slap her. She roared, "Who told you to make the decision and give him the silver?" Chui'er covered the half of her face that had been slapped and said aggrievedly, "Young miss, I'm doing this for your own good. Dr. Gu is obviously in a fit of anger. He won't listen to anything you say, and it's better to let him leave first." Chapter 96. A bunch of idiots. When Miss Zhao heard her say this, she remembered Gu Shengruo's attitude toward her just now, making her angry and annoyed. She was rushing to please him as a young lady, yet he was this insensible. It was really irritating. "I'm sorry, Chui'er. I hit you in a moment of anger. Please don't take it to heart." Although Chui'er knew that her apology wasn't sincere, she also knew that she had no right to argue with her. She could only say, "Miss, Dr. Gu just said someone tried to attack him on the road. Could it be Master had made a move, so he mistakenly thought it was your arrangement?" "It's most likely true. It seems that we have to go back to the residence so you can find out what happened." Miss Zhao nodded in agreement. At the same time, she was also anxious. She had not even developed a close relationship with Dr. Gu, and now this had happened. She was afraid it would be more difficult to get close to him in the future. She thought about this and got a headache. Then, she said, "Also, send someone to keep an eye on Uncle Qiao. If they do anything, remember to let me know immediately." Chui'er knew what she was up to. She shook her head and said, "Young miss, please spare me. If Master finds out that we leaked the information, he will definitely beat me to death." I'm here. What are you afraid of? I won't give you up when the time comes. But, no buts. When have I ever mistreated you? If you continue to be like this, you don't have to serve me anymore. Miss Chiao said with a dark face. Chui was immediately afraid. Her young lady usually looked soft and weak, but she was a ruthless person deep down. Chui didn't want to be sold to those dirty places. After that, they packed up and took the ointment back to town. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Not long after Gu Qingrui left, Xiao Mu arrived with his men. He was shocked to see them lying on the ground and quickly walked over to check on them. After confirming that they were only unconscious, he slapped each of them a few times before they woke up. When the 6 people woke up, they were in a rage but immediately became well-behaved when they saw Xiao Mu. Each and every one of them drooped their heads and said, "Chief Xiao. What's going on? Where's the person I asked you to kidnap?" Xiao Mu asked in a bad mood. "We didn't expect him to have drugs and hidden weapons, so," the leader replied in a low voice. When Xiao Mu heard this, she pointed at them with her finger and said resentfully, "A bunch of idiots. I already warned you to be careful, but you still fell for it. Really, Chief Xiao, why don't we just kidnap that woman?" The leader immediately smiled apologetically. "But the village, let's go around the mountain. Didn't Blackie say they were staying at the foot of the mountain?" Xiao Mu's eyes brightened when she heard this. Capturing that little lady was the right thing to do. Most importantly, she was easy to deal with as a woman. Finally, she nodded and said, "All right, let's end this quickly. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome if the villagers block us. Don't worry, we're all men. If we can't deal with a little girl, we're better off dead." After the leader finished speaking, he turned around and led his men to the mountain. Meanwhile, Xiao Mu also followed after hesitating for a moment. It would naturally be best if he could ask for the recipe right there on the mountain. The group of people quietly went around to the back of the mountain. Seeing there were not many people in the village, they boldly ran to the Gu couple's house. However, before they reached the door, Zhuang barked loudly. His bark was urgent and loud. Obviously, something was wrong. Chapter 97. Ill-intentioned Zhou, who was busy in the kitchen, heard Zhuang's abnormal barks and immediately rushed out. She was met by 6 big men with sticks, 3 of whom even surrounded Zhuang. This made her immediately realize that the other party had come with ill intentions, so she didn't even say a word and immediately took out a pepper spray and hid it in her sleeve. When the leader saw Zhou, he was stunned for a moment. Then, his eyes lit up with an evil smile. "You must be Mrs. Gu, right? If you have nothing else, please leave," Zhou said vigilantly. "Seeing that you're as pretty as a flower, we won't make things difficult for you. Come with us." After the leader finished speaking, he sized her up and ensured that there was nothing in her hands. Then, he walked toward her with a stick in his hand. Zhou stared at his stick. Seeing that he didn't instantly make a move, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't until he grabbed her hand that Zhou suddenly aimed the pepper spray at his face and sprayed it 3 times. At the same time, she took 2 steps back and jumped out of his stick's range. The leader let out a blood-curdling screech and immediately covered his face with the hand about to grab her. With his other hand, he swung the stick at the spot where she had been standing. When Zhou saw this, she turned around and sprayed at the others. However, when they saw their leader's miserable state, none dared to step forward. However, they didn't retreat. They immediately surrounded her and said, "You'll run out of the things in your hands sooner or later. You'd better come with us, otherwise, don't blame us for being rough with you." "Humph," Zhou snorted coldly and ignored them. She approached Zhuang as she sprayed the pepper spray. She removed the leash on his neck when she got to his side and let him out. Because she clearly knew that even if nothing happened to her after being captured by them, she would be gossiped about when she returned. At that time, how could she have a foothold in the village? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks therefore, she could only persevere. As long as she could hold on a little longer, she would be saved when the people from the village came. Then, she retreated to the shed and simply grabbed the sticks of firewood to throw at them. Especially the leader, because he couldn't use his eyes anymore and could only wave the stick in his hand blindly. Therefore, Zhou deliberately threw it at his lower body, making him flustered. He even hit his people with his stick from time to time. When the others saw this, they were all furious. After looking at each other, they decided to attack together. After all, no one would die from this. As long as one of them could catch her, it would be over. After Zhou saw through their intentions, she remembered the knockout powder that Gu Qingrui had left for her. She immediately took out a packet and crushed the paper packet when they came over, throwing it at them. When the few of them saw the powder, they subconsciously withdrew it. Nonetheless, 2 of them were still knocked out. Zhou smiled when she saw this. Then, she retreated to the front of the woodpile and used the woodpile as a cover. She took out a large bag of dried limestone powder from the corner, scooped up a small pile, and threw it above them. Seeing this, the remaining 3 people didn't dare approach her, but they weren't stupid. They separated and surrounded her in 3 directions. Seeing this, Zhou prepared a bag of lime powder, opened it, and held it in her hand. At the same time, she aimed the pepper spray in one direction. But someone still rushed into the shed from behind. Zhou immediately threw the lime powder out, turned her head, and sprayed the pepper spray at him to scare him away. However, this gave the other side a chance. Seeing this, Zhou took an air gun from her interspace under the cover of her coat. She turned around and shot it at his eyes. Bang! The man let out a heart-wrenching scream. Chapter 98 More discord in the village. Zhuang's barking did not initially attract any attention. After all, dogs have very sharp ears and will bark at the slightest sound. However, when they heard human screams, they finally realized something was wrong. In particular, Sister Tian heard it and immediately ran over. When she saw the scene in the courtyard, she was so scared that her legs turned jelly. She finally regained some strength after thinking of her daughter, who was still inside. However, she also knew she wouldn't be of help even if she went in, so she turned around and ran to the oil mill, telling the patriarch what had happened here. When the patriarch heard this, he knew that things were bad and immediately called out, "All workers, carry your tools and go to Gu Shengruo's house to help." Most of the people here were from the Gu clan. When they heard this, they each found their tools and rushed out without a word. He greeted some villagers as he ran out. Not long after, he ran into Zhuang, who was barking on the street. Zhuang, the patriarch called out. Zhuang heard the familiar voice and immediately ran over. He circled around him and bit his sleeve, wanting to drag him home. Seeing this, the patriarch patted his head and ran toward the Gu couple's house. Everyone immediately ran after him. When Qiao Mu, who was waiting halfway up the mountain, saw the people suddenly gathering in the village, he knew that something had gone wrong. However, it was too late to save his people now, so he just rushed back to town with his remaining men. On the other hand, when the patriarch and the others arrived, only the man who had dodged Zhou Ying's limestone powder was left standing. However, after seeing the endless variety of tools in Zhou Ying's hands, he didn't dare to take another step forward. He only confronted her with a stick. When he heard the hurried and messy footsteps outside, he knew something was wrong. People were coming, and there were quite a number of them. His legs suddenly went soft, and he almost dropped to the ground. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks then. He looked at Zhou with her pepper spray and then at his companions, who were in a sorry state. He hesitated for a moment, turned around, and ran out. However, as soon as he stepped out of the door, he was blocked by two young men and pushed to the side. The patriarch came in with his people. When he saw Zhou holding limestone powder in her hand, he was stunned and asked, "Miss Zhou, are you all right?" "I'm fine. I've made sufficient preparations." Zhou shook her head. After that, she felt relieved as her legs gave out, leaning against the pile of firewood. Zhuang scuttled out at this moment and ran in front of her, nuzzling his head against her leg to comfort her. Zhou smiled and patted his head. At the same time, the patriarch saw that she was not injured and immediately waved his hand, "Tie them up and take them to the ancestral hall." The crowd immediately rushed forward and tied them up. "Chief, are these two dead about to die? Why aren't they moving?" Someone pointed at the two unconscious men and said. The patriarch looked at Zhou after hearing this. Zhou walked over. "No, they are just drugged. The others were stung by the chili-infused water." "That's good. What do you plan to do with them next?" The patriarch asked with a sigh of relief. "These are the people sent by the Qiao family. Why don't we exchange them for silver and let everyone have a good new year?" Zhou hesitated for a moment and said with a smile. The patriarch was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed and said, "I also want to know how much these servants of the Qiao family are worth in the eyes of their master. With Elder Qiao's character, I'm afraid he won't admit it, and he won't risk losing his dignity for a few servants." Gu Qingye explained on purpose after he understood what they meant. It was fine if Elder Qiao was willing to redeem them, but otherwise, he would publicize it and make others hesitant to work for him in the future. Chapter 99 Psychological Issues. Do you think the Qiao family is like your Gu family? Master will definitely pay to redeem us. The leader roared. Ha! Zhou laughed sarcastically. Then let's wait and see. We won't ask for too much. Well, set it at 100 taels of silver per person. You guys should also take a good look at how much you're worth in Elder Qiao's heart. You're clearly trying to extort money. How is this extorting money? You know what you've done, or why don't we go to court? You, sister-in-law, you're right. Trespassing on private property is a serious matter. You'll be sentenced to more than 5 years if you get a heavier sentence. Gu Qingye said at that moment. What if we add kidnapping and robbing attempts? Then at least 20 years. If your master abandons you, you'll be sentenced to death. The leader didn't have much confidence after hearing what they said, so he didn't dare to talk back. Otherwise, if they were really abandoned, they would be skinned alive even if they didn't die. Bring them to the ancestral hall to kneel and repent to the ancestors. The patriarch waved his hand. After everyone had left, he looked at Zhou and said, "Be careful. If something happens, make some noise. Everyone will definitely come to help." "Thank you, uncle. I understand." "Yes. Tell Qingrui not to go out if there's no need to." By the way, it was Tian Jiawang's sister who informed us this time. After speaking, the patriarch put his hands behind his back and walked out in a good mood. He had to hurry over and get their confessions, which would be helpful in the future if something happened. After he left, Zhou saw the ruined yuba in the courtyard and felt a burst of anger inside her. Then, she thought of Dehua, who was still in the kitchen. She quickly turned around and went back to the kitchen. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. As soon as she entered the door, she saw Dehua shivering at the door. She was about to comfort her when Sister Tian rushed in. When she saw Zhou, she paused and asked, "Sister, are you all right?" I'm fine. It's just that Dehua, Showing looked at Dehua, hesitating to speak. Sister Tian immediately squatted down and hugged Dehua. Don't be afraid, Dehua. Mother is here. Towards the end, her voice started to choke up. However, Dehua didn't say anything and continued to tremble. Seeing this, Showing knew that Dehua had some psychological issues, so she could only ask, Sister Tian, did Dehua go through some kind of shock? When Sister Tian heard this, tears immediately flowed down her face. After a moment of silence, she wiped her tears and said, after her father died, we were beaten and scolded a lot, so, after she finished speaking, she hugged Dehua and started crying. Zhou was upset after hearing that, but she knew she couldn't let Dehua be immersed in her terrifying emotions. Then, she pinched one of Dehua's hands and pinched it hard. Ah, she cried out. The intense pain woke Dehua up instantly. At the same time, she raised her hand and pushed her hard, then started crying. Fortunately, Zhou was prepared. She directly grabbed the door frame and didn't fall to the ground. However, Sister Tian was displeased. She raised her head and questioned, Sister, what are you doing? How can you do that to a child? I'm just letting her come to her senses. If she keeps being in a nightmare, she'll break down eventually. Zhou explained patiently. What do you mean by breaking down? It means that she would be mentally unstable, go crazy, or commit suicide. It's hard to say. That's impossible. Sister Tian's expression changed drastically when she heard that. Zhou just looked at her quietly without saying anything. Chapter 100 Causing Trouble 1. Her silence made Sister Tian feel uneasy. Then, she looked at her elder daughter, who was crying and trembling in her arms. She hugged her tightly and started crying too. At the same time, she also thought of her daughter's silence and reserve. She also quickly realized that her daughter might have a psychological issue, as Zhou said. She quickly raised her head and asked, then what should I do? Should she take medicine? Yes, and not only does she need to take medicine but also undergo psychological counseling. We'll talk about this when Qingrui comes back. No matter how busy you are, you have to communicate with her more, let her feel your love, let her feel a sense of security, and then she will gradually get better. Although Sister Tian did not fully understand, she knew she had to accompany her more in the future. Then we'll go back first. We'll come back later, she said as he carried Dehua. Alright, thank you for today, sister. Zhou stood up and made way for them. You're welcome. After Sister Tian finished speaking, she carried her child home. When Zhou smelled a burning smell, she quickly walked to the stove and put out the fire. Then, she turned around and went to the courtyard to clean up the fallen yuba. She saved the ones that could be salvaged and threw away the ones that were damaged. When she was almost done, Gu Qingrui ran back in a hurry. Seeing the mess in the yard, he immediately ran to Zhou. He pulled her up and looked her up and down before asking, Babe, you're not hurt, are you? It's alright, it's just my knee that knocked on the firewood. It's nothing serious. Zhou shook her head. Then, she saw the marks on his clothes and elbow and asked, You fell? Gu Qingrui did not hide anything from her and told her everything that had happened along the way. He said with self-blame, It's all my fault. If I had drugged them more, they wouldn't have woken up so quickly. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, you saw them. Are you sure they're a group of people? Yes, I met the two who were being carried. After Zhou heard this, she squinted her eyes and smiled. Rui, go and make some more knockout powder. Remember to make the kind with high concentration. Gu Qingrui looked at her expression and knew that she would cause trouble. He guessed, are you going to the Chow family's house tonight? Smart. Otherwise, he will become more than just a thorn in our side. When Zhou said this, she snorted coldly and said, is it because he's rich that he could hire others to commit murder? I'd like to see if he can still be so arrogant without money. I can do any kind of investigation. But we can't just rob him, or else we'll be no different from him. Gu Qingrui frowned. There's a difference, he's taking the initiative while we're responding to his advances. When Zhou said this, she directly raised her hand to cover his mouth and said, don't talk to me about principles. You don't need to talk about morality and righteousness with bandits. Besides, if we don't make a big deal out of this, how can we divert his attention and make him reveal his faults? Gu Qingrui hesitated momentarily and finally compromised, all right, but safety first. I know. After Zhou finished speaking, she told him about Dehua. I originally thought that she was just an introvert and didn't like to talk. I didn't expect it to be a psychological issue. I'll go take a look now. Gu Qingrui turned around and went to their neighbors. After a detailed diagnosis, Gu Qingrui gave her acupuncture to put her to sleep. Then, he gave Sister Tian a few instructions and gave her a few doses of calming medicine for free. After lunch, Gu Qingrui went to work in the inner space at noon, while Zhou continued to dry the yuba. Chapter 101 Causing Trouble, 2. On the other hand, after the patriarch went back and interrogated the few people and got their confessions, he sent a beggar with a letter to the Chow family, asking them to pay the ransom with silver or else they would send these people to the county officials. Chow Mu couldn't make up his mind after receiving the letter, so he took the letter to find Elder Chow. After reading it, Elder Chow's face turned green. He immediately grabbed the teacup on the side and threw it at him angrily, idiot. You can't even handle such a small matter. You even left such big leverage on us from the Gu family. The teacup just so happened to hit Chow Mu's head, and the tea spilled all over him. However, Chow Mu didn't dare to retort and could only obediently stand there with his head drooped. He cautiously asked, Master, what do we do now? Are we going to pay them? After hearing this, Elder Chow hesitated for a moment. He threw the letter aside and asked, Are these people reliable? It's all right, they're all veterans who have followed us quite a few times. Then we won't bail them out. Isn't this just telling everyone we are the ones responsible? What can they do if we don't acknowledge them? But I'm afraid they'll send someone with a letter and tell them to hold on for 2 days. Well, save them when they let down their guard. I'll personally welcome them back when the time comes. Then I will make the arrangements right away. Chow Mu affirmed. Be careful this time, don't let anything go wrong. Yes. Chow Mu responded, turned around, and walked out. Then, she had someone pass the letter to Blackie and have him think of a way to deliver the letter to those people. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. On the other hand, Gu Qingrui also knew that the ransom would not go smoothly. Thus, after a meal, he went to the patriarch's house to tell him about the matter and asked him to send more people to watch over those people. When it was close to midnight, the moon was barely seen in the western sky, and the whole night sky was dark. It was a good time to do anything sneaky. Zhou and her husband changed into black sportswear and smeared their exposed skin with black ash so that other than the white of their eyes and teeth, there was no color other than black. After that, they quietly left the village and went straight to the town. Then, they went to the wealthy district and found the Chow estate. However, looking at the 2-meter-high wall, the two of them were in a dilemma. After that, they split up and circled the Chow estate before finally meeting up outside the stables. Because there was a large pagoda tree outside the wall, although it was a certain distance from the wall, it was enough for them to climb up. Just as Zhou wanted to climb up with a rock climbing hook, Gu Qingruo pulled her to the side and said, "Give me a hand. There might be people guarding the stables. Then wait for me before you go down." After Zhou finished speaking, she handed him a half-dried piece of tissue that had been soaked in knockout powder. Gu Qingruo nodded and quickly went up the tree. After he went up, Zhou also quickly climbed up and took out a tranquilizer gun from her inner space, just in case. Seeing this, Gu Qingruo tied the rock-climbing hook to the tree, grabbed the rope, and gently swung across the branches and walls into the courtyard. He quietly walked to the stables. Sure enough, there was a person on duty sleeping soundly inside. Gu Qingruo covered his nose with his hand and made him sleep deeper. Then, he walked out and waved to Zhou. Zhou put the tranquilizer gun back into her inner space and followed the rope into the courtyard. After getting down, the two found a side door and walked around. They went in and made sure that there was no one inside. Later, they turned around and headed further into the mansion. Chapter 102 Causing Trouble, 3. When they passed by the servants' room, the couple blew over the knockout powder to knock everyone out. Then, they almost encountered a patrol team when they walked to the central courtyard. Afterward, the two hid in a rock decor and observed the surroundings. In the end, it was confirmed that there were 2 teams of 5 people, and the interval between each group rotating was quite long. The 2 of them stayed in the rock decor and waited for the patrol team to come over. They blew some knockout powder and carried the fainted people into the decor. They proceeded to knock everyone out in the manor. According to the layouts of the manor, they found a study in a courtyard in the northeast. Gu Qingruo stepped forward and used a wire to open the lock. The 2 of them put on shoe covers and gloves respectively before quietly walking in. Seeing that the curtains inside were down, Zhou took out 2 small thumb-sized flashlights and carefully looked for the Qiao family's account book containing evidence of the crime. Very quickly, the couple found the account book. However, it was apparent that it was just a surface-level accounting book. But it was not difficult to see that the business of all the Qiao family restaurants wasn't doing well, especially the restaurants in this town. They basically maintained a level of neither profit nor loss. "No wonder he's willing to risk so much on our recipe," Zhou couldn't help but say. "The taste of his food is part of it. I think it also has something to do with his character." Gu Qingruo shook his head and returned the things to their original positions. Then, the 2 started to look for a secret room in the house. They finally found a secret underground room about 5 square meters in size, hidden behind a bookcase. There were 2 large boxes and a small bookcase inside. He opened one of the boxes and saw gold ingots. There were 4 ornaments in the other box. A jade guanyin statue, a hanging cypress sculpture with 3 sheep, a red coral tree sculpture, and a green jade scepter. They were so exquisite that even the couple who did not know much could tell they were precious. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Zhou put them all into her interspace, and the 2 looked at the small bookshelf. On it were the real account books. She realized that the Qiao family had been in contact with the county governor for a long time, and they would send many gifts to them every year. The 2 boxes of things from before were most likely this year's New Year's gifts. Finally, there were a few letters between them. Gu Qingruo read through them and realized that no other people were mentioned in the letters. He didn't know who the county governor backing Elder Qiao was, but he still put down the letter. After the 2 of them left the study, they were a little depressed when they saw that they hadn't gotten many results. Zhou and Gu Qingruo continued looking for the manor's various storehouses. First, she found a storehouse of about 100 square meters beside the kitchen. Inside, there was all kinds of food, cured meat, frozen meat, dried vegetables, pots, bowls, ladles, and so on. She put all of them into her interspace. Then, they went to the warehouse in the front yard. Because it was where they kept their money, 2 people were left to guard it. When they went over, the 2 guards were chatting in low voices. Seeing this, Zhou directly took out a tranquilizer gun, put the 2 people to sleep, and then stepped forward to take back the needles. Looking at the big lock on the door, Gu Qingrui immediately went forward to unlock it. He pushed the door open and walked in. However, the Qiao family was not as rich as they had imagined. They had only received less than 10,000 taels of silver from the warehouse. There was also a small chest of silver pieces and a large chest of copper coins. Finally, they found about 5,000 taels of silver in a paper form inside a drawer. Seeing that they had got what they could, the 2 of them wiped away their traces and retreated. After they left the manor, they went straight home and fell asleep. Chapter 103. Fainted at dawn. They got up and started to make tofu again. After sending Tian Zhuang away, the couple finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as they were about to go back to their rooms to sleep, the patriarch walked in with an excited face. When he saw them yawning, he was stunned for a moment and asked, "Were you guys out last night being thieves? Why are you so sleepy? We can't even guard against the thieves targeting us. How could we be one?" Gu Qingrui said without batting an eyelid. He then yawned and said, "Well, I was afraid that the Qiao family would send people over again, so I didn't dare sleep much the entire night." "You don't say." "At dawn, we really did catch one in the ancestral hall. It was the one who had been watching us villagers. Then I can rest assured in the future." "Do come in," Gu Qingrui invited. "Have a seat." "No, it's all right. I'm here to tell you a piece of good news." "Oh, what good news? Did you hear? The Qiao family was robbed last night. They didn't even leave a pot or bowl for them. It was so tragic," the patriarch said with a gloating expression. "They've been robbed. Who did it?" "I don't know. I heard that Elder Qiao was so angry that his face turned green. However, they didn't find anything else besides knowing that they used knockout powder." The patriarch laughed. "I don't know which person did it. If I knew, I would pray for his safety for the next 3 years. This is just so satisfying." After speaking, he waved his hand and said, "All right, you guys go ahead. However, it's best if you don't leave the village for the time being, in case that old brat takes his anger out on us." Then, with his hands behind his back, he hummed a little tune and walked out. After he left, Gu Qingrui went up and locked the door. He also laughed. Zhou rolled her eyes at him and went back to her room. Seeing this, Gu Qingrui knew that she was laughing at his behavior for stopping her from robbing them. After all, he had received many years of education and grown up in a morally decent place. He could not accept that he was doing a thief's job. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. However, when they entered the house and thought of Elder Qiao's angry face, they couldn't fall asleep. Ultimately, the 2 entered the inner space and packed up the things they had stolen. The chest of gold was exactly 1,000 taels, and the silver ingots of various sizes totaled 9,000 taels. Zhou felt that she could not use them at the moment, so she simply put them away in the warehouse. She placed the remaining 800 taels of silver and copper coins on the villa's 2nd floor. Then, it was food and utensils. They didn't expect to receive 2 large jars of mustard seed and sauced vegetables. It tasted delicious. Zhou smacked her forehead at the end of all this, saying, "We should have gone to the storeroom with all kinds of clothes and jewelry. If it's exposed, then so be it. It's enough as long as it serves as a warning. Elder Qiao must rest for a while before recovering from these losses." Gu Qingrui replied. "That's right. The Qiao family shouldn't be this poor. Why is there only so little silver? Could it be that it's all with his wife?" "I don't think so. When I was in the silver vault, I looked through the account books and saw that the Chow family had recently purchased a lot of shops and fields. I think they have used them to buy more property. No wonder Elder Chow's face turned green from anger. It's good enough that he didn't faint, Zhou said with a smile. What she didn't know was that after Elder Chow realized something was wrong, he immediately ran to his study room. When he saw that the gifts he had prepared were gone, he really fainted and was now being treated by doctors. 3 days have passed in the blink of an eye. The patriarch noticed the Chow family didn't come to redeem these hooligans, so he simply sent them to the county officials with their confessions, then left them alone. On the 4th day's evening, Qian Zhuang and Gu Erjiang came to visit in a good mood. What's wrong? Gu Qingrui asked directly. Is there good news? Chapter 104 A Big Move. 1. There really is one, and it's big news. Qian Zhuang said with a mysterious look. Is that so? Brothers, please come inside. After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he led them into the house and shouted to the kitchen, help me make a pot of tea and get some snacks. After they entered the house and sat down, he asked, Brother Qian, what did you guys find this time? You should have heard about the Chow family's house being robbed, right? I heard that they haven't found the thief yet. That's right. Constable Li brought more than 10 officers with him, but they didn't get any clues except for the knockout powder. Right now, everyone in town is saying that the Chow family must have offended some big shot. Otherwise, how could their manor get robbed out of nowhere? That's right. Some even said that they might have offended a deity. Otherwise, how could there not be a single track mark left behind after so many things were stolen? Gu Erjiang added. Then, he gloated and said, I'm afraid the Chow family's days of arrogance are coming to an end. It's definitely quieting down. Don't you see that the people of the Chow residence don't really dare go out now? Qian Zhuang affirmed. At this time, Zhou came in with a pot of ordinary Longjing tea and a large plate of snacks. There were mung bean cakes, chestnut cakes, thin slices of yam, and a few spicy dried tofu. After putting down the plate and pouring a cup of tea for each of them, Zhou sat down and asked, why is the Chow family being so well-behaved now? Well, think about it. Who wouldn't be afraid of being knocked out of nowhere? If they intended to kill, the entire Chow estate would be finished. Who wouldn't be afraid? Gu Erjiang curiously pinched a piece of spicy dried tofu. At first, he couldn't get used to the taste but soon couldn't stop eating one piece after another. Seeing this, Qian Zhuang quickly grabbed 2 pieces and tasted them. Then, he remembered the purpose of their visit. He pinched a piece of mung bean cake and ate it while saying, by the way, didn't you ask us to keep an eye on the Chow family and see if they've made any big moves recently? We did manage to find out about something. Oh, is the Chow family making any big moves? Gu Qingrui asked curiously. This morning, the butler of the county governor's residence went to the Chow family. After he left, Elder Chow gathered all the servants and long-term workers. After they left, we asked a long-time worker and found out they seem to have some major work ongoing tonight. Do you know what it's for? Qian Zhuang shook his head. We've asked 2 servants, but they didn't know either. Since we were afraid of arousing suspicion, we didn't dare to ask anymore. Gu Qingrui nodded thoughtfully and asked, is there any more news? Oh right, have you heard about the release of thugs you sent to the county jail? Oh, how did they get released? Did someone come and get them? No, I heard that each of them was given 20 canes. As for whether there was a private deal, we don't know. Do you know where they're staying? Yes, they're in a small courtyard near the dock. The woman there even hired a doctor for them. Who's the owner? It's too chaotic there. Many of them are rented houses, so I couldn't find out anything. Alright. You guys can help pick up the soybeans from tomorrow onwards while collecting information. Gu Qingrui said. Okay, we'll start tomorrow. Gu Qingrui stood up and gave them 100 copper coins. This is your salary for the past few days. After that, he gave them 500 coppers and said, this is the money for the soybeans. Dr. Gu, you're so generous. Well, take our leave then. Qian Zhuang stood up and said. Wait a minute, you two. I can see that you like the spicy dried tofu. I'll get you some to go with your drinks. Zhou Ying stopped them and went to the kitchen. She used some oil paper to pack 2 pounds of snacks for them before sending them out. Chapter 105 A Big Move, 2. After they left, Zhou Ying looked at Gu Qingrui, who was frowning, and asked, Did you think of something? Don't you think something's wrong? What good can they do by gathering so many people in the middle of the night? Gu Qingrui pondered for a moment before adding, No, I have to go out tonight and see what the Qiao family or the county governor are up to. Maybe I can find something to use against them. I'll go with you. I'll pass on your offer this time. I'll go by myself as it'll be inconvenient for you to follow me. But, no buts. I promise you I won't do anything I'm not confident about. Also, I'll definitely bring something for self-defense when I go out. Zhou Ying hesitated for a moment and finally gave up. After all, her current body was still a little lacking in physical strength and endurance. After that, the two of them quickly made dinner. When the village quieted down, Gu Qingrui changed into black clothes. He took a few bags of knockout powder, an anesthetic gun, and a pair of binoculars and left quietly. Zhou Ying went to the back of their house, prepped 100 pounds of soybeans to soak, and then braised some pig intestines. When she was done, she saw that Gu Qingrui had still not returned. Thus, she took out a book on mushroom cultivation from her interspace and started reading. On the other hand, Gu Qingrui walked along the river and hunkered down as he left the village. After ensuring no one was on the road, he quickly ran toward town. When he arrived near the Qiao family's residence, he saw Elder Qiao hurriedly leaving in a carriage. So, Gu Qingrui quietly followed. However, he lost them halfway but still managed to follow the route of the carriage. He did not expect that when he followed them all the way to the river, he would find about 100 or so people transporting goods down from a large ship. The destination of these goods happened to be the mountains. This made him immediately sense that something was amiss. He followed them from a distance and found the cave where they stored their goods. For the sake of safety, he retreated to a cypress tree about a mile away and quietly observed everything with his binoculars. Based on the weight and shape of the things they were carrying, he quickly determined that they were either consisting of grains or sand. However, it was impossible for them to be busy with a ship full of sand in the middle of the night, so it had to be grains. After the goods were transported, a team of well-trained people quickly came to guard the cave. Gu Shengrui's expression became serious looking at all this. If these were not private soldiers, they must have been provided by someone behind the governor with military power. This was not a joke. The issue was where such a large amount of grain came from and where it was about to transport. It seemed that this matter was getting big, and it was not something that a small fry like him could get involved in. He could only silently remark and see if he could find the owner of these lost items. Thinking of this, he got down from the tree and quietly went down the mountain. After the workers at the foot of the mountain had completely left, he walked along the river bank in the direction of his home. When he reached a turn, he tripped over something and almost fell. Then, he heard a muffled groan. Gu Qingrui was shocked, turning around hurriedly and looking down. He realized that he had tripped over a human arm. Looking at the arm, it was someone with noble status, wearing a jade crown on his head. However, looking at his half-dead appearance, it was obvious that his injuries were severe. After hesitating, Gu Qingrui squatted down and carefully examined him. Gu Qingrui didn't expect to meet someone so unlucky. Not only was the person seriously injured, but also poisoned. If the person weren't treated in time, he wouldn't be able to live past tonight. Chapter 106. Unlucky man. Gu Qingrui saw that there were thick calluses between the thumb and the palm of this person's right hand. One look and Gu Qingrui could tell that he was used to holding a sword. He thought of this as he remembered the ship with grains. He wondered if there was any connection between the two. After struggling for a while, he finally decided to save him. If it was a descendant of the Qiao family, he could just kill him later. If it were the Qiao family's sworn enemy, this would be a sharp sword delivered to their door. It would be a waste not to use it. Then, Gu Qingrui searched the nearby area and ensured he didn't leave anything behind. After scrambling up their traces, he quickly rushed home with the unlucky guy on his back. Zhou Ying, who had been studying mushroom cultivation, immediately put down her book and walked out when she heard Zhuang's bark. Just as she reached the gate, she heard a familiar voice. "Babe, open the door." After Zhou Ying confirmed it was Gu Qingrui, she immediately opened the door. She was surprised to see a person on his back, but she quickly let him in and closed the door. After entering the house, she asked, "Rui, who is this person?" "I don't know, as I saved him on the way." "Take us into the interspace. His injuries are too severe, and he needs an operation." Zhou Ying nodded and brought them into her interspace. Then, she sent them to a small operating room on the villa's first floor. After Gu Qingrui put the person down, he gave her a list of medicines to prepare. He sat at the side and panted heavily. Seeing this, Zhou Ying took a bottle of mineral water and handed it to him. Then, she turned around and went to the warehouse to prepare the medicines. After she returned, Gu Qingrui did not dare to delay any further. The two of them worked together to start preparing for this operation. When Gu Qingrui took off the poor man's wet clothes, he realized that there were many wounds on his body, knife and arrow wounds both. "I think this person's identity is not simple," Zhou Ying quipped. Gu Qingrui nodded in agreement. "Yes," he confirmed. "He should be from the military." Then, he saw that the knife wound on the person's back had extended into his pants. He looked up and said, "Babe, go and find him some clean clothes. Leave this to me." "Sure, call me if you need anything." After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she turned around and walked out. Then, she took a new set of Gu Qingrui's undergarments, disinfected them in the washing machine, and hung them outside the operating room with a hook. At this time, her stomach growled, and she remembered that it was almost dawn. Zhou Ying went to cook a pot of pork and century egg porridge and drank a bowl of it. After about 2 hours, Gu Qingrui finally left the operating room, exhausted. Zhou Ying quickly went forward to help him into the kitchen and said, "Have a bowl of porridge first." "Babe, you're always so considerate." Gu Qingrui spoke weakly as he took the porridge and drank it in big mouthfuls. Only after Gu Qingrui relaxed did he realize that his legs were as heavy as lead. He couldn't even lift them. Seeing this, Zhou Ying put the empty bowl aside and said, "You've been busy the whole night. Hurry up and go to sleep." "Okay, one of the medicines I gave him is a relaxant so that he won't wake up for a while. You should go out and sleep too. If anyone asks about me, just say I went up the mountain." Gu Qingrui paused and continued, "Oh right, make as much tofu as possible, but don't tire yourself out." "I know. You should go to sleep." Zhou Ying reminded as she helped him to their bed. She then prepared a glass of water for him and turned to go out. To her surprise, she heard his snoring before stepping out of the villa. Then, she gently closed the door and left the interspace. Seeing that the sky in the east had already brightened, she didn't delay any longer and immediately went to the kitchen to get busy. Chapter 107 Messenger. Fortunately, no one else came to visit in the morning except the two usual parties. Qian Zhuang came to pick up the donkey cart, and the other was De Hua, who came to light the fireplace. In the afternoon, Zhou had just started work when Chunhong, Widow Hua's daughter, came to visit her in a hurry. Zhou remembered that she was related to Miss Zhao, so she didn't let her in. Instead, she asked with a calm expression, "Miss Chunhong, what's the matter?" Chunhong looked at her nonchalant attitude and replied in a bad mood, "Someone told me to tell you that when someone comes to search the village in the afternoon, they will take the opportunity to cause trouble for your family. So, you should be careful." "Who gave you the information? What are they searching for?" Zhou paused for a moment and asked in disbelief. "I heard that all the clinics, including the houses of the doctors in the countryside, will be searched. I don't know the specific reason. As for who gave me the information, it's none of your business. Believe it if you will." After Chunhong finished speaking, she turned around and left in a huff. Zhou turned around, and her face became serious. If her guess was correct, the person they were looking for was probably the young man that Gu Qingrui had saved last night. Since the Chao family sent the news, this person was most likely not on good terms with the Chao family. Otherwise, they would not have the mood to find trouble with the couple if they were searching for someone. She didn't have the mood to continue making her yuba after this since it would most likely be ruined. She went into the kitchen, brought a big bowl of soy milk for De Hua, and asked her to go home. She squeezed the rest of the soy milk into tofu skin and dried tofu before putting them into her interspace. She then entered the interspace after closing their door. She did not see Gu Qingrui on the first floor when she entered the villa. She had no choice but to go up to the second floor and finally found him in the laboratory. Seeing that he was concentrating on an experiment, she turned around and went downstairs to the kitchen. When she found the thick green bean soup in the kitchen, she knew that he had not eaten yet. She went to the warehouse to get a piece of rib and 2 corns, and used the pressure cooker to make a pot of soup for him. Finally, she went outside and picked 2 big tomatoes to make a plate of tomato scrambled eggs. When she was done, Gu Qingrui came downstairs. When he saw her busy in the kitchen, he went up to hug her and kissed her on the cheek. "It's been hard on you, babe. Have you eaten?" "I've eaten. So you hurry up and eat too," Zhou said as she pushed him away to begin setting up the food. After she was done, she asked, "How is he? When will he wake up?" "There should be a search in the afternoon." "Search? What's going on?" Gu Qingrui asked after he sat down. Zhou did not hide anything and told him the news that Chunhong had sent. Gu Qingrui nodded and said, "Come and eat with me." "That's right, that unlucky guy was poisoned by crow's poison. Although he was fed some green bean soup, he still needed an infusion. He probably wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Before he wakes up, let him stay in the interspace so that he won't be discovered. Crow's poison has no antidote and can only rely on your body to slowly expel the poison. It seems that someone wants his life. Yeah, he'll go out and gather more people in a while. Since Miss Chow handed us the information, we have to use it well. I don't believe that Elder Chow will just watch his daughter marry an enemy." Zhou nodded in agreement and added, yes, it's best to make both father and daughter fall out." Then, she picked up a piece of corn and happily munched on it. It was impossible for her to feel guilty. Miss Chow knew they were already married but still wanted to snatch her husband away. Zhou knew that Miss Chow was not someone decent, so she did not feel any sympathy for her. If she understood the reality of things earlier, it might have helped her find a good man sooner. Chapter 108 Search After the meal. Gu Qingrui changed the unlucky man's wound dressing, and the couple left the interspace. Gu Qingrui said to Zhou Ying when they came out, "Go to the west wing and rest for a while. I'll go and gather some people." After saying that, he locked the door from the outside and walked to the patriarch's house. Zhou Ying was quite sleepy initially, but she didn't sleep in the end. First, she feared it wouldn't look good when others came. Second, she was afraid she wouldn't be able to sleep at night if she slept too much. Therefore, she went to the kitchen, boiled a pot of hot water, and made a pot of tea. Then, she washed some cups and prepared them. After that, Zhou Ying took out the soybeans she had bought from the grain shop and started sifting them while sitting in the courtyard. After a while, Gu Qingrui came over with a large group of people. He began to serve them tea and also brought out some small snacks. About an hour later, 3 officers rushed in. Zhuang immediately barked at the 3 of them and blocked their way. Seeing that the leader of the 3 was about to slash at Zhuang, Zhou Ying immediately got up and walked over to stop him. "What business do you all have here? This little lady looks pretty good. Since we've been tired of running around, why don't you accompany us for a few drinks?" The leader of the group saw Zhou Ying's appearance and smiled. After speaking, he raised his hand and wanted to touch Zhou Ying's face. However, just as she raised her hand, Gu Qingrui rushed out and stopped him. "If you have something to say, say it. There's no need to make things difficult for a woman." "Kid," the leader still wanted to say something, but when he saw more than 10 strong men coming out of the house, he immediately swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue. "What are you all doing here?" he asked. "Officer, we are all people from the Gu clan. The clan's ship sank some time ago, so we came over to discuss buying a ship." The patriarch stepped forward and greeted him. "I wonder why 3 officers have come. Do you want to come in and sit?" he asked. Seeing this, although the leader was unhappy, he knew he could not force his way anymore. He said, "Forget it. We're here to look for bandits. Have there been any strangers in your village recently?" "Really? That's great. Our Gu clan's ship was robbed a few days ago. As for the strangers you mentioned, there are some. They made a scene in the village a few days ago and were later sent to the county officials. You'll know when you go back and investigate." The leader's mouth twitched when he heard that. He was impressed that they tried to relate 2 different batches of people. "It's not the same thing. We still have to go in and search." Please." The patriarch hesitated for a moment but still stepped aside to let them into the house. At the same time, Gu Qingrui also brought a few people and followed them in. The 3 officers, who had wanted to take the opportunity to search the house and take some things, had no choice but to search the house obediently when they saw them follow them in. After making sure that no one else was around, he looked at Gu Qingrui and said, "You are the doctor of this village, Gu Qingrui?" "Yes, I know some arts of medicine." Gu Qingrui answered respectfully. "One of the criminals we are searching for is seriously injured. If anyone comes to treat his wounds, remember to report it in time. In addition, don't simply prescribe your medicine for now. Once we find out, you'll be treated as a traitor." "Yes." Seeing this, the leader waved his hand, and 2 of his men went to the medicine cabinet and searched for all medicines for external injuries. Ultimately, they even took away the most expensive bag of ginseng slices. What if the villagers are injured after these have been taken away?" Gu Qingrui stepped forward and said hesitantly. Chapter 109 Worry. If you don't want to cause trouble, don't put your head in. Remember to report to me immediately if you see anyone with knife wounds. The leader glared at him coldly. Then, he turned around and left with his men and medicinal herbs. After they left, the patriarch instructed, Chingrue, it hasn't been peaceful recently. You must be careful. Don't let the Chow family get hold of anything. I will. Don't worry, uncle. Gu Chingrue nodded. Okay, well be going then. Remember to call us if you need anything. I will, but you guys should sit for a while longer. It's still early. No, there are many things to do at the workshop. The patriarch turned around and left after he finished speaking. After the 3 officers left the village, the youngest among them, carrying the medicinal herbs, said with a smile, "That young lady from the Gu family is really attractive. You dunderhead. Let's hurry up with our search. Otherwise, we won't even be able to keep our jobs." The leader said in an unpleasant tone. Do you think the Gu clan received a notice in advance? One of them asked thoughtfully. Otherwise, why would they just happen to be gathered there? No way. After we arrived in town, we took action straight after lunch. How could anyone leak the news? Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Why don't I stay behind to investigate and see if the person is hiding in someone else's house? Don't get any funny ideas. That place is nearly 50 miles from here. How could he have gone so far with such serious injuries? Let's hurry and visit all the nearby village doctors. On the other hand, after everyone left, Zhou sent Gu Qingrui to her interspace. Then, she locked the door and entered the mountain with Air Zhuang. She planned to cut some withered grass and shrubs to start a fire. Gu Qingrui entered the operating room in the interspace and saw that the foredrip was all used up. He immediately pulled out the needle and carefully checked the patient's condition. After confirming that his condition had stabilized, Gu Qingrui finally heaved a sigh of relief. He then checked the ureter. After ensuring he wouldn't wake up for a while, Gu Qingrui went out of the villa to feed the animals in the interspace. In the evening, Zhou had just returned home when Qian Zhuang and Gu Erjiang returned with the donkey cart. Seeing the pitiful amount of soybeans in the car, she asked in surprise, "My 2 brothers, why did you only get so few soybeans? Don't mention it. Haven't there been a lot of bean sprouts recently? There are no soybeans or green beans in the nearby villages. Some of them also wanted to sell them at a high price. That's why we're thinking of visiting the neighboring town tomorrow." Qian Zhuang shook his head. I see. Then I'll have to bother you to search in the distance. After Zhou finished speaking, she took the soybeans, weighing less than 10 pounds. Then, she gave them a tael of silver. After Qian Zhuang took the silver, he returned the donkey cart and turned to leave. Zhou stared at the soybeans in her hand and was a little worried. It seemed that she had to prepare a batch of soybeans in advance from her interspace. Then, she made dinner and entered her interspace. Gu Qingrui saw her coming in and stepped forward. "Babe, you're finally here. He might wake up soon. We have to bring him out of the interspace quickly. Then hurry up. I'm done cooking. He'll be able to eat after we've settled him down. By the way, I made dried pot fish. Remember to serve it," Gu Qingrui said as he carried the unlucky fellow on his back. Seeing this, Zhou sent them out and took the dried pot fish out. After their meal, Gu Qingrui and the unlucky guy slept on the brick bed while Zhou went to the west room. She burned some charcoal, took out a single bed from her interspace, and slept. In the middle of the night, the unlucky guy was woken up by his urge to urinate. He was stunned when he saw where he was. Just as he wanted to get up to relieve himself, he pulled on the wound on his back. It was so painful that he gasped. Chapter 110. Waking up. Gu Qingrui was purposely sleeping lightly. When he heard the commotion, he immediately woke up and lit the oil lamp on the bedside table. He looked at the unlucky man and said, "Brother, you're awake. Who are you? Where is this place?" The unlucky guy asked warily. This is my house, and I found you by the river the night before. Who are you? Gu Qingrui asked. Yesterday afternoon, someone came over to search the village for bandits. Bandits, ha! The unlucky guy's eyes flickered after hearing this, and then he sneered. He thought, like master, like servant, distorting the truth as always. Gu Qingrui looked at his disdainful expression and knew that this person was most likely the owner of that batch of grains. You haven't eaten anything for a day and a night. I'll go get you something to eat first. Can I use the toilet for a moment? The unlucky guy blushed and stammered. Wait a moment. After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he went outside and brought in the chamber pot he had prepared earlier. Then, he helped him turn over so that he could relieve himself. After the person was done, Gu Qingrui put the chamber pot outside and went to the kitchen to bring him the warm millet porridge and steamed tofu with cabbage. It's a little late, just make do with it. This is already more than enough. The unlucky guy began to eat in big mouthfuls. However, his movements weren't crude or ugly in the slightest, but bold and elegant. This reminded Gu Qingrui of the silk clothes this person had worn and the jade crown on his head. His identity must not be simple. After he finished eating, Gu Qingrui asked while cleaning up, do you still want more? No, maybe tomorrow. By the way, may I know your name? Gu Qingrui. My surname is Heartwarming. I should be older than you, so you can just call me Brother Zhou. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, nice to meet you, Brother Zhou. Your injuries are too serious for you to move now, so you should lie down quickly. Sorry for the trouble. After the unlucky man finished speaking, he carefully laid down on the bed while Gu Qingrui placed the bowl and chopsticks on their dining table. After lying on the brick bed, the two chatted for a while. However, it was mainly Gu Qingrui who was talking, while young Master Zhou only said he was from the capital and nothing else. Gu Qingrui did not mind because he knew that Heartwarming would not tell him his identity if he couldn't trust him. However, Gu Qingrui also revealed what was on the surface. It was information that could be found with a simple check. When young Master Zhou heard that he was from the Gu family in the capital, he was stunned for a moment and did not ask any more questions. Young Master Zhou didn't expect Gu Qingrui to work with Uncle Lu and didn't expect that the bean sprouts and dried yuba were the work of this young couple. Thinking of them as a couple, he felt a little guilty. Because of him, the young couple had to sleep in separate rooms. It seemed that he had better switch places tomorrow. The following day, Zhou began to make breakfast after plating some tofu. Breakfast was simple. It was millet porridge, mustard greens in sauce, sweet and sour radishes, and some black steamed buns with cabbage and pork mince. After breakfast, young Master Zhou said guiltily, Miss, I'm sorry for disturbing your lives with my arrival. I think I'll stay in the west room. Zhou shook her head and said, I wouldn't go so far as to say that you disturbed us. By the way, I was just about to tell you about this. It's not safe here as people come and go in the outer wing, so it's better to move to the west wing and come out as little as possible. If you're discovered, we can't protect you, right? I understand. Thank you so much. I'll leave as soon as I can move. Young Master Zhou nodded. Zhou nodded and cleaned the dishes before returning to the kitchen. Chapter 111. A smell. Gu Qingrui helped him change the bed sheets and arranged for him to stay in the west room. He left him a chamber pot, water, and some charcoal before locking the door of the west room and going to the kitchen. Everything was as usual, besides going over to ask him if he needed anything from time to time. In the evening, when Qian Zhuang and Gu Erjiang returned, they had collected half a cart of soybeans. After Zhou and Gu Qingrui unloaded the cart, it weighed just a little under 300 pounds. Brother Qian, what's the price of these soybeans? Are they easier to purchase? Asked Zhou. 5 coppers, the same as the grain store. Otherwise, no one would be willing to sell. However, there seems to be someone else there who is also buying soybeans, so I can't guarantee how much we can buy a day. Qian Zhuang replied. Zhou gave him 5 taels of silver and said, collect as much as you can as soon as possible since we won't be able to go out once it snows. All right, I will spread out as far away as possible. Qian Zhuang took the silver and said. He turned and asked Gu Qingrui, by the way, Dr. Gu, who has the Chow family and the government been searching for these 2 days? They're being quite thorough. The most important thing is that they keep a close eye on pharmacies. They banned the sale of medicine or antidotes, and someone who sells them will be executed on the spot. You must be careful. I've heard about this too. They said they were looking for some water bandits. What water bandits? The authorities in this area are so strict that there are no water bandits. They might be looking for someone else. Is that so? Then you guys see if you can find out more and see what the Chow family is up to. Don't worry, we'll keep an eye on this. After sending off Qian Zhuang, Zhou and Gu Qingrui had dinner. After dinner, Gu Qingrui went to the west room to get the empty dishes. Young Master Zhou looked up and asked curiously, are you interested in the Chow family's affairs? How do I put it? Because of some grudges between our ancestors, the Chow family has been suppressing us. They even sank my father's ship some time ago, causing my father and second uncle to be bedridden. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Oh, so you've been keeping an eye on the Chow family. Young Master Zhou's eyes flickered as he asked. I can't say that I'm keeping an eye on them, but more like guarding against them. The main problem is that without the Gu family's control, the Chow family has been arrogant recently. Arrogant? How so? Gu Qingrui was overjoyed when he heard that. In a grumbling tone, he told young Master Zhou about what the Chow family had been doing recently and their behavior, including the incident of kidnapping them because of the braised intestine recipe. Braised intestine, is it delicious? Young Master Zhou pursed his lips and asked. Gu Qingrui was shocked to see him in such a daze. He then said, with a troubled expression, Ing will braise it later, you can have a smell. Smell? Couldn't you let me have a taste? There's a pepper in it that can help with blood circulation, so you can only eat it when your injury is almost fully recovered. Young Master Zhou's face was full of pity after hearing this, and he didn't have any good reasons to ask for more. Brother Zhou, you can get off the bed and take a few slow steps if you're not tired. After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he took the bowl and chopsticks and left. Young Master Zhou looked at his back with a thoughtful expression. He couldn't tell if Gu Qingrui was really just complaining or if he knew something and was deliberately sending him a message. However, saying he was delivering a message was not entirely correct. After all, other than getting kidnapped, the culprit regarding the shipwreck incident was only his guess. He couldn't help Gu Qingrui even after telling him. Or maybe Gu Qingrui wanted to borrow his power. But how did Gu Qingrui know who he was, or maybe he really knew something? It seemed that he had to observe Gu Qingrui carefully to see what kind of person he was and his purpose. On the other hand, Gu Qingrui naturally knew that after saying so much, young Master Zhou would definitely have some thoughts, so he didn't care much after that. In the evening, besides giving him 2 storybooks, helping him to the toilet twice, and asking about his condition, he didn't say anything else. Chapter 112 Clue. On the other hand, after Elder Qiao had finished entertaining the officers, he turned around and went to his study. The county governor waiting in the study saw him and immediately asked, Brother Qiao, how is it? Do you have any news about Heartwarming? No, nothing was left except the blood near the shore. Oh right, wasn't he poisoned? Could he have died in the river? Elder Chow asked while shaking his head. That's impossible. All the other bodies have been fished up, and he's the only one missing. He should have resurfaced or crashed onto the shore if he's really dead. Then could it be that his boy was entangled by the seaweed or blocked by something? The county governor looked at him thoughtfully and said, "That's for the best. Tomorrow, gather some men to go into the water and search around again. I'll look around and see if I can find any other clues." Elder Chow replied, "I'll make the arrangements now." The county governor remember to investigate carefully. Whether he's alive or dead, we have to get confirmation and/or control him if he's alive. Otherwise, we'll all die. Understood. Then I'll go back now. After the county governor finished speaking, he turned around and left the study. Then, he left the Chow estate through the nearest exit and rushed to town. The couple stayed at home for the next 2 days to make tofu as usual. Other than taking care of young Master Zhou, Gu Qingrui would cook some porridge to nourish his body from time to time. Other than them, he would sometimes send some to Father Gu and the rest. All of a sudden, the couple's popularity in the village rose. Back to Elder Chow, he was so anxious that he had a mouth full of blisters. One day, when he saw the officers return empty-handed again, he became increasingly impatient as his anger grew. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. However, he also knew now was not the time to be angry. So after everyone finished eating, he asked, "Officers, did you find anything unusual when you went out to look around these last few days? Please think about it carefully." "Something unusual?" The constable thoughtfully replied. "Yes, anything that you think is strange. Otherwise, a living person wouldn't have disappeared into thin air, right?" Constable Li looked at the other officers and commanded, "Brothers, think about it carefully. Think about anything out of the ordinary." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone began to recount the places that had felt wrong or where their searches hadn't been smooth. Some mentioned villages with too many dogs, and it was impossible to hide their tracks. Someone lost their clothes in a village. All sorts of news in one of the villages. Elder Chow's head was about to explode, but he could not find any helpful information. The leader who had gone to Gu Shengruo's house said, "There's something that I find suspicious, but I can't find anything wrong with it. If there's anything, say it. We'll make a judgment together." Constable Li said. "On the first day, when we were informed to investigate the village doctor, we met more than 10 people at Dr. Gus' house in Shanghe village. At that time, they said they were discussing buying a ship for the clan. However, after we entered the house, we found that there was tea and all kinds of snacks in the house. It didn't seem like they were talking about business. So, I'm thinking that they might have received some news in advance, waiting there." "Received news in advance? I don't think that's possible. We basically acted together that day," Constable Li stated uncertainly. After he finished speaking, he looked at Elder Chow. After all, he was the only one in the town who had received the news in advance. Elder Chow was abnormally irritated by his distrustful gaze. Still, he quickly recalled his previous instructions and turned to find Chow Mu to ask, "Did you pass down the order I previously told you to find trouble with Gu Qingrui during the search?" Chapter 113. Searching. Chow Mu naturally heard the conversation and nodded repeatedly. "I did. I asked Xiao Yuan to inform the officers who were assigned there personally. They also brought back a lot of medicinal herbs. Go and call Xiao Yuan over. See if he told anyone else," Elder Qiao said thoughtfully. Although Qiao Mu felt that his son would not reveal anything, he still turned around and called him. After Qiao Yuan found out why Elder Qiao was looking for him, he had a troubled expression on his face. When Elder Chow saw this, he knew that he had most likely leaked the news because he was the kind of person who would spit out the truth after drinking 2 mouthfuls of wine. He stepped forward and kicked him in the stomach angrily. "Tell me, who did you leak it to? Otherwise, it'll break your legs." Yes, hurry up and say it. This matter is very important," Xiao Mu said as he stepped forward and helped Xiao Yuan with a pained expression. Xiao Yuan panted heavily as he clutched his stomach. Then, he said hesitantly, "Yes, I told the young lattice maidservant you er." "Nonsense, how could it be her?" Elder Qiao denied it immediately. Then, he looked at Xiao Yuan coldly and asked again, "Speak, who is it?" Xiao Yuan's neck involuntarily shrank back when he met his cold gaze. He took 2 steps back and said, "Master, would never dare lie to you. I only told the young lattice maidservant, you er." When Xiao Mu saw Elder Qiao's frighteningly dark expression, he hurriedly said, "Could it be that you accidentally leaked it, or someone bribed her?" Although Elder Qiao didn't say anything after hearing that, his expression was clearly much better. Then, he pointed at Xiao Yuan and said, "Come with me. Xiao Mu, please help me entertain Constable Li and the others." "Yes, don't worry about that," Xiao Mu said and looked at Xiao Yuan worriedly. "Do a good job with Master and say what you know." "Understand?" "I know, Father." "Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." "Thanks, let's go," said Elder Qiao as he turned around and walked toward the backyard. He didn't expect to see a figure flash past before entering the second gate. Elder Qiao was stunned for a moment. He chased after her and didn't expect to chase her to Miss Qiao's courtyard. Then, he raised his head and shook at Xiao Yuan, quietly walking over. "Miss, Master seems to be heading to the backyard. So what if he's here? Isn't it normal for my father to come to the backyard?" But, I just heard that the Master and the others are investigating something unusual. I'm afraid, coward, it's already been a few days. Who would still pay attention to such a small matter? By the way, what's going on in the front yard? When can we leave? Before Miss Qiao could finish her sentence, Elder Qiao lifted the curtain and walked in with a dark face. When Miss Qiao saw him enter, she was stunned for a moment. Then, she gave you a look, got up, and quickly rushed toward Elder Qiao to hug him. However, she was slapped to the side by Elder Qiao. Yuer and Xiao Yuan were shocked. They had seen how much the elder doted on the young miss. This was also why the people in the manor were so accommodating to Miss Qiao and the people around her. He had never thought that Elder Qiao would one day hit her. More importantly, slapping so ruthlessly. As for Miss Qiao, she was at first stunned, then in disbelief. When she returned to her senses, she felt a burning pain in her face and teeth. A mouthful of blood-stained drool instantly flowed out when she opened her mouth. Drop by drop, it dripped onto the ground. In just a moment, the blood had covered the ground, scaring Miss Qiao silly. Chapter 114 Confirmation. Elder Qiao's heart twitched when he saw this. This child was his only daughter and also his legitimate daughter. So all these years, he had always pampered and protected her in all aspects. He had not even lightly hit her once. He didn't expect he would one day slap her to the point of bleeding. However, when he thought about what she had done, he was so angry that he wanted to slap her again. Then, he turned to Yuer and asked, "Tell me the truth. 3 days ago, who incited you to try and get information from Xiao Yuan? Who did you give the information to?" Yuer's body trembled when she heard this. Then, she knelt on the ground with a plop and secretly looked at Miss Qiao. However, Miss Qiao was still in a daze and didn't receive her signal for help. Seeing her reaction, Elder Qiao already had an answer, but he refused to believe that his daughter was the one who stabbed him in the back. He then raised his leg and kicked Yu'er in the chest. He gritted his teeth and demanded, "Speak. Who did you give the information to?" Yu'er fell to the ground from the kick and spat a mouthful of blood. However, she did not dare to tell the truth. After all, in the Qiao estate, a servant who betrayed their master would be sold to the mines. She did not want to go to the mines and suffer that kind of pain. "Are you going to tell me or not? Otherwise, you'll invite your entire family." Elder Qiao stepped forward and threatened. Yu'er looked at the shadow beside her and panicked. In the end, she still confessed everything honestly. At the same time, she hated Mississippi Qiao, as she had promised to protect her after the incident. She didn't expect that her master wouldn't even say a word when it came to it. "Good, very good." Elder Qiao clenched his fists tightly and turned to Qiao Yuan, "Send her to the Cuihong building." Yu'er was stunned, as she knew the Cuihong building was every man's favorite place. Then, she quickly shook her head and shouted, "No, no, miss, save me. I don't want to be sold. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." "Thanks, take her away," Elder Qiao said as he turned around to walk out. At this moment, Qiao Yuan also stepped forward and pulled the crying Yu'er out. When they reached the door, Yu'er clung to the door frame and shouted at Miss Qiao, young miss, save me. Save Yu'er." Miss Qiao finally came back to her senses. When she saw that Yu'er was about to be pulled away, she immediately stepped forward and grabbed Qiao Yuan's arm. "Brother Qiao, let go of Yu'er. I did it. It has nothing to do with her." Qiao Yuan ignored her and looked at Elder Qiao. Hearing his daughter admit it, Elder Qiao's mind went blank. After a while, he turned around and said, "I really raised such a good daughter. Not only is she a traitor, but she's also helping the enemy deal with her father." "Father." Miss Qiao knelt down. "Don't. I can't be called father by you. You actually don't care about your father's life in exchange for a man. Do you know that if this matter really goes wrong, the head on this old man's shoulder will be gone?" "Dad, I didn't." Miss Qiao shook her head. "That's enough. Qiao Yuan, release her and arrange for people to guard the young Miss courtyard. Without my permission, no one is allowed to take a step out of this courtyard. Also, no one is allowed to approach this courtyard, including Madam." "Yes, Master," Qiao Yuan said as he retreated to the side. "Guard it well to atone for your crime. You'll be going up the mountain to mine stones if there's any more trouble." After Elder Qiao finished speaking, he turned around and left. When Miss Qiao saw this, she fell to the ground. Qiao Yuan immediately gave Yu'er a look, telling her to take care of the young lady while he went out to call the guards. Chapter 115. Caught. As for Yu'er, she looked at the dejected Miss Qiao, whose face was swollen. The resentment in her heart finally subsided a little. Then, she went forward to help her return to the room and applied some medicine to her face. Yu'er also took some ice and wrapped it with a towel for her face. After the burning pain on her face subsided, Miss Qiao returned to her senses and grabbed Yu'er's hand. "Yu'er, please go to Shanghe village and send a letter to Dr. Gu. By tomorrow morning soonest, my father will definitely send someone to find trouble with them." "Young miss, you're crazy. Didn't you see how angry the master was just now? Besides, our courtyard has already been guarded, so I can't go out anyway." Yu'er shook her head. She wasn't the young lady and was lucky to have survived this time, but if she did it again, she would be better off dead. "If you go, I can give you 100 taels of silver." Yu'er was stunned for a moment, but she still shook her head and said, "Young miss, don't make things difficult for this servant. I really don't have the ability to leave here. I will add on, returning you your contract of service, added Miss Chow. After Yu heard this, she handed the towel to Miss Chow. She turned around and said, you should rest. I have to boil some medicine. After saying that, she ran out of the house as if escaping the place. Seeing this, Chow gritted her teeth in anger. She really raised an ungrateful wolf. However, she also knew that her father would not let Gu Qingruo off this time. She turned around and put her precious jewelry, silver notes, and other things into a small box. Then, she put on a change of clothes and went out. However, she didn't go through the main door. Instead, she walked to the ladder usually used to collect dates on the west side of the courtyard. She quickly climbed the ladder, reached the top of the wall, and jumped. Then, she walked to a horse shed. She didn't expect to meet a patrol team and immediately hid inside the rock mountain decor. However, the patrol team still found her. With the previous incident of the mansion being robbed, they did not dare to show even the slightest bit of carelessness. The 5 guards immediately found her in the rock decor. Seeing this, Miss Chow walked out with a dry smile. Brothers, it's me, Chow Lon Lon. I want to go to the manor to find my mother. Miss, please go back. We can talk about it tomorrow. It's too late now, said the captain expressionlessly. He had already heard that the young miss was grounded. If they let her go now, none of them would meet a good end. They might even get their families involved. It's not late at all. I will be sleeping in the manor. Miss Chow then turned around and walked towards the stables. Young miss, you should come with us to see the master. If the master allows you to go, it's not too late then. After the captain finished speaking, he gestured to the people behind him, and they immediately spread out to surround Miss Chow. You guys, let me go. Miss Chow struggled. However, just as she opened her mouth, she was interrupted by the captain. Miss, please. Seeing this, Miss Chow knew there was no chance, so she simply said, then I'll go back to sleep. She turned around and walked back to her small courtyard. The captain immediately sent 2 people to escort her back while he went to the front yard to find Elder Chow and informed him that Miss Chow wanted to go out. Elder Chow, who had just sent people out, was immediately enraged. He then jogged all the way into Miss Chow's courtyard. After entering the room, he paused when he saw his daughter lying on the bed. Then, his eyes fell on a bundle on the bedside table. He opened it and took a look. When he saw what was inside, he was furious. Was his daughter planning to elope? Chapter 116. Coming here at this thought, he grabbed Miss Chow's arm and pulled her out. He pointed at the things on the table and said, Tell me, what's going on? Father, be gentler. It hurts. Miss Chow pouted. Tell me, or I'll strangle you to death, so you don't embarrass me. After Elder Chow finished speaking, he clutched her vital spot in anger. At the same time, his eyes were red, his nostrils were enlarged, and his hair was almost standing up. Seeing his fierce look, Miss Chow was so scared that she didn't dare move or speak. Seeing this, Elder Chow felt helpless and infuriated. He threw her onto the bed and said, I thought you were still young and wanted to stay for 2 more years, but it seems like I can't. From today on, you can embroider your dowry in your room. Father will help you find a good family to marry into as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. When Miss Chow heard this, she was stunned momentarily and immediately chased after him. Father, don't. I don't want to get married. However, this time, Elder Chow did not pay any attention to her. Instead, he walked faster. When he came out, he looked at Chow Yuan, who was kneeling on the ground. He said, "Watch carefully this time. If you make another mistake, it'll take your life." "Yes, master. I'll definitely look after the young miss." Qiao Yuan quickly nodded. After Elder Qiao left, he immediately called two of his brothers to the small courtyard to put away any ladder, high stool, rope, and other things that could be used for climbing. He also instructed Yu to keep her knives, scissors, and other things in case of emergencies. While this was happening, Qiao Mu personally led more than 10 skilled servants to Shanghe village in order to atone for his son's sins. However, what he didn't see was that one of them quietly left the line after they went out. When the person was near the dock, he turned to find Manager Lu and told him about the matter. "Dr. Gus' house. Are you sure? Our people from the restaurant went there every day to pick up goods, but they didn't see General Zhou." Manager Lu looked at the man in shock. "I'm not sure, but it looks like it should be the deal. As for the fact that we didn't see him, it could also be that General Zhou's injuries are too severe, and he simply can't go out. Or rather, he doesn't dare go out. You have to make a decision quickly," the man urged. "Otherwise, it'll be really dangerous if they get there first." Manager Lu finally nodded and went to a small courtyard not far away to call for more than 10 people. The group of people set off at top speed after covering their faces. Finally, they met near Xiahe village. After the two parties fought for a short while, Qiao Mu and his party were knocked down to the ground. "Take them to the manor and lock them up," Manager Lu said. "Interrogate them properly, especially since Qiao Mu knows a lot." "Yes." One of them responded and then escorted Qiao Mu's group to a manor outside the town. They detained them in the dungeon and started interrogating them. On the other hand, Manager Lu brought 2 men with him and sneaked into Shanghe village to find the Gu couple. As soon as they got close to Zhuang, he started barking. This woke up the 3 people in the house. When Zhou woke up, she gave Gu Qingrui a bottle of pepper spray and said, "Rui, try not to open the door before asking clearly who it is." "I know. You should get up as well. If something goes wrong, hide Brother Zhou well." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he quickly put on his clothes and coat before leaving. At the same time, Zhou also quickly got up and prepared a small bag of knockout powder. If their visitors came with bad intentions, she would knock young Master Zhou unconscious and put him in her interspace. After she was done with her preparations, she stood guard at the west wing door and waited for Gu Shengrui's signal. Young Master Zhou, who was in the west room, also slowly put on his clothes. If the people out there really came with ill intentions, he would escape to avoid bringing a fatal disaster to the couple. Chapter 117. Leaving Gu Qingrui walked to the door and asked, "Who's there? What's the matter in the middle of the night?" "Brother Gu, I'm Manager Lu of Hongyun Restaurant." Manager Lu whispered. Gu Qingrui was stunned when he heard that. He thought he had heard wrong and quickly asked again, "Who is it?" "Manager Lu of Hongyun Restaurant, please open the door, Brother Gu." Manager Lu smiled and tried to speak at his usual volume. Gu Qingrui finally heard it clearly this time, and it was really Manager Lu. Then, he opened the door and welcomed them into the house. "Manager Lu, what's the matter?" "He's here to find me." At that moment, young Master Zhou walked out of the west room and said, "Young Master, I'm late, and I've caused you to suffer." Manager Lu immediately stepped forward and bowed. Young Master Zhou went forward to help him up. "You came at the right time, and I was just careless back then. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been in this situation." After Zhou and Gu Qingrui looked at each other, she looked at them in surprise and said, You two, know each other." "That's right, this is the second owner of Hongyun Restaurant." Manager Lu hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. "So you're the second owner?" I'm sorry for not taking better care of you. Gu Qingrui greeted and said. As for whether he had another identity, they would pretend not to know if they weren't told about it. In any case, he heard that the owner of Hongyun restaurant had a unique identity, so it should be more than enough to deal with the Chow family. No, no. I'm afraid I would have turned into a ghost if I hadn't met you. Young Master Zhou waved his hands. Manager Liu looked at the two of them calling each other brothers, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He then asked, Dr. Gu, where did you save our second owner? Gu Qingrui did not hide anything. He told them about how he followed Elder Qiao after receiving the news and how he saved young Master Zhou. There are still some residual toxins in young Master Zhou's body. It's best to find a skilled doctor to recuperate better, he instructed seriously. I will, young Master Zhou nodded, then turned to Manager Liu and asked, Uncle Liu, how did you find me? I don't think we left a trail. I found you through the spies I arranged in the Chow family. Qiao Mu originally planned to bring people over to capture the couple, but I received the news and captured them before rushing over. Then we can't stay here any longer. Let's go. After young Master Zhou finished speaking, he bowed to Gu Qingrui and Zhou Ying and said, Thank you for saving my life. I'll visit you to thank you after I'm done with this matter. There's no need to come and thank us. If the Qiao family finds out, we will both be dead. Gu Qingrui waved his hands. Young Master Zhou smiled meaningfully and did not say anything more. He looked at Zhou Ying and said, Sister-in-law's cooking skills are sure great, especially the braised intestine. When I recover, I will definitely come to taste it. You're too kind. Braised intestine takes a long time, so you can tell me half a day in advance when you want to eat it. Of course. I'll take my leave then, said young Master Zhou as he turned around and walked out. Wait! Gu Qingrui shouted. He turned around and went to the west room to get some anti-inflammatory medicine. He handed it to him and said, I don't know if these medicines can be bought outside. In addition, regarding the thread on the wound on your back, find a doctor who you trust early in the morning, 2 days from now, to remove it. It will be troublesome if it regrows into the flesh after leaving it there. After saying that, Gu Qingrui put his sheepskin coat on him. Young Master Zhou was stunned. He lifted his hands to touch his back and said, The day after tomorrow, right? I've noted it down. We'll be leaving now. After saying their goodbyes, he led Manager Liu and the other two out. Not far from the village, they met a carriage picking them up, and then the group rushed to town. Chapter 118 Wiped out. Gu Qingrui and his wife waited for them to leave and started tidying up the west room. Once they were done, they entered the interspace. After drinking a glass of water, Zhou Ying said, Let's go up the mountain tomorrow after we deliver the goods to Brother Tian. First, we can cut some firewood for winter, and second, we can avoid the Chow family. That's fine, but I don't think avoiding the Chow family is necessary. Since Manager Liu dared arrest the Chow family's butler, I don't think this matter will be over easily. I think the Chow family will be finished soon. Gu Qingrui said thoughtfully. A centipede won't stop moving even in death. We should be careful. Zhou Ying shook her head. Yeah, there's no harm in being careful. Gu Qingrui did not refute her after hearing her words. So the next day, after they were done with their work, the two of them put their valuables into the inner space and took Air Zhuang into the mountain. After Manager Liu and young Master Zhou returned, they interrogated Qiao Mu and the others overnight. Because they had learned from Gu Qingrui the location of the batch of military rations in advance, they quickly broke through Qiao Mu's line of defense, and he spilt everything he knew. In addition, there was also some information that Manager Liu had gathered. So, the following day, he sent people to restrain the entire Qiao family. After that, young Master Zhou and Manager Liu went to the county and restrained the county mayor and governor. Of course, the wife of the county governor, Mrs. Jiang, was also under control. After that, they interrogated the mayor. Because he was just a cowardly puppet and had not done anything terrible, he readily confessed. As expected, when the county mayor found out that young Master Zhou was a third-ranked general on the third prince's side, he told him everything he knew and even took the initiative to resign from his position as county mayor. However, it did not go smoothly when they interrogated the county governor and his wife. Fortunately, they found a lot of evidence in the matter. In addition to their previous investigation, they beheaded the two and sent the rest of their family members to the mine. Elder Qiao and Qiao Mu were similarly beheaded in the Qiao family, and the other family members were exiled to the north. When Gu Qingrui and his wife came down from the mountain and received the news, they were in disbelief. One was young Master Zhou's identity, and the other was the speed of their action. They were still on guard against the Qiao family when the Qiao family had already been wiped out. It seems like the third prince has already started investigating this county government, said Gu Qingrui. Yeah, to dare have ideas about the army provisions, they are sure something else. Zhou Ying nodded in agreement. That's not something we should be concerned about. Our days will be much easier now that the Qiao family doesn't keep an eye on us. By the way, didn't you want to do business in town before? Let's plan what we can do after the new year. The dried yuba is selling well and with a decent profit. It's a pity to give it up, so I think we should set up a workshop in the village. That's a good idea. We'll have to find a reliable person in the village to manage it. Then I'll leave this matter to you. No problem, he affirmed. As the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Just as the two of them were looking for candidates, on the morning 5 days later, the assistant of Hongyun restaurant came to pick up the goods and told them, Dr. Gu, Mrs. Gu, young Master Zhou is hosting a banquet at Hongyun restaurant to thank you. Please remember to go. After seeing the assistant off, the two of them waited for Tian Zhawang to pick up his goods. Once he was off, the couple packed up and walked to the town to attend the banquet. When they arrived in town, especially when they passed by the market, he found that there were more people with smiles on their faces. Even the number of people doing mom-and-pop businesses was much higher than before. Gu Qingrui curiously asked an old lady who was smiling, Granny, is there any good news in town recently? Chapter 119 Attending the banquet. There's good news, excellent news, and it's not just one. The old lady replied with a smile. Then, she pointed to a small shed not far away and said, Young man, haven't you noticed that the people collecting protection fees in this market are gone? I heard that the county governor has also changed, and some of the previous miscellaneous taxes will be waived from next year. We commoners can finally live a good life. That's right. In the past, there were various taxes that we had to pay. Now, we finally get to catch a breather, said a middle-aged woman selling pickled vegetables. It's such a pity for my eldest daughter. I don't know where she's been sold to. She wiped her tears as she continued. As soon as she finished speaking, the lively atmosphere in the market dropped to the freezing point. Gu Qingrui and Zhou Ying looked at each other and then walked away silently. At the same time, they finally realized how deep the waters in this county were. At least, it was much deeper than what they had seen. If they had not saved young Master Zhou by chance, their lives would definitely not have turned for the better. When the two arrived at the restaurant, Manager Liu was already waiting at the entrance. When he saw them, he immediately came up to them and greeted them warmly. Dr. Gu, Mrs. Gu, you're here. Please come in. Uncle Liu, you're too polite. Gu Qingrui greeted him. Then, the couple followed him into the restaurant and entered a luxuriously decorated private room on the second floor. Manager Lu invited them to sit and said, "Let's sit down and have a drink first, the second owner will be here soon. Please do what you need to do." "Well, just wait," Gu Qingrui said. "That's true, we're acquaintances now. Tell me if you need anything, and don't be polite." Manager Lu turned around and left after saying that. Zhou Ying stared at a plate of date paste cakes on the table. At first glance, she could tell it was an excellent artisan-made cake. She pinched a piece and put it in her mouth, tasting it. It's delicious. There are no impurities in it at all. If you like it, eat more. These old-fashioned snacks are really tasty when they're made fresh. Gu Qingrui pushed a plate of spring rolls in front of her as he said that. Zhou Ying looked at the crispy golden snacks in front of her and replied, "To be honest, seeing these spring rolls reminds me of many different fried snacks. It's a pity I never learned how to make them, always missing something special." "Is it those snacks that were deep-fried in beef fat?" "Yes, it's always so fragrant, crunchy, and delicious. We could try making them later. Maybe I can reproduce it." "What are you two talking about? You seem to be having a good time." Young Master Zhou smiled as he walked in, followed by a waiter. "We're just talking about some food. Brother Zhou, please take a seat." Gu Qingrui stood up and said. Young Master Zhou nodded his head and raised his hand to signal for him to sit down too. He sat on the main seat and said, "I'm not afraid of you guys laughing at me, but I'm also a glutton. Tell me what you guys want to eat, and we'll have a good meal this afternoon. Then don't mind if we do. Let's have Hongyun restaurant signature dishes, sauced beef, and red braised pork," suggested Gu Qingrui. Young Master Zhou nodded and told the waiter. Then, he asked Zhou Ying, "What do you want to eat?" Zhou Ying wanted to say, "Poached fish," but she remembered that young Master Zhou was still injured. So she changed her words, "Stir-fried white prawns and some cold shredded tofu salad." "Shredded tofu salad, do we have it here?" Young Master Zhou couldn't remember the dish no matter how hard he tried, so he looked at the waiter. The waiter nodded. "Yes, it's a new dish. It's only served after getting some advice from Mrs. Gu. Then we'll have one." After young Master Zhou finished ordering, he looked at the two of them and asked, "What else do you want to eat?" "Continue ordering. The three of us have to order at least 10 dishes and a soup, right?" Chapter 120 Restaurant. You're the owner here, so you must be more familiar with the menu than us. "I think you should order," said Zhou Ying. "That's true." Young Master Zhou nodded his head and looked at the waiter. Steamed yellow croaker, sea cucumber with scallion, 4 happiness meatballs, chrysanthemum tofu, stir-fried black fungus, sweet and sour radish shreds, and finally, a serving of duck soup. "What kind of wine would you like to drink, Brother Gu?" he asked. "You can't drink now," Gu Qingrui replied seriously. Young Master Zhou's expression immediately changed. He had forgotten that Gu Qingrui was a doctor. If he had remembered, he would not have asked. Now, he could not even drink a sip even if he wanted to. He finally waved his hand at the waiter. "Please wait a moment." The waiter politely told them and filled the teapot with hot water before leaving. Young Master Zhou then said, "I'd like to apologize to you first. My identity was a little sensitive before, so I didn't dare tell you the truth. I'm General Zhou's second son, Heartwarming. I am here to transport grains this time, but I didn't expect to be backstabbed by the people around me." "Are those grains really military rations?" "Yes, otherwise, that group of people wouldn't have been convicted so quickly." Zhou Huaiming looked at Gu Qingrui in surprise and asked, "How did you know that's military rations?" "Just an afterthought. After all, ordinary merchants would not transport so much dry grain." "That's true. By the way, do you guys fancy the Chow family's Dongxing restaurant? How about giving it to you two to run it? Aren't you afraid it'll steal Hongyun Restaurant's business? Zhou Ying asked after a moment of surprise. Having a competitor is good for improvement and innovation. Besides, this town is so prosperous, it's impossible for just us to monopolize the restaurant business. It's better to give it to sister-in-law. I think it's not a problem with your skills if you want to occupy half the customer base here. Then we'll accept your offer. By the way, how much does this restaurant cost? No, I said I'd give it to you, so I'm going to give it to you. After young Master Zhou finished speaking, he took a contract and a key from his sleeve and handed them to her. I know a little about the Gu family situation, so it's better to put it under sister-in-law's name, he explained. When Gu Qingrui heard him mention the Gu family, he immediately remembered that his father had asked them for the recipe for bean sprouts. He nodded in agreement and said, "Thank you, Brother Zhou. Why don't you change the way you announce it? You could say that you liked Ying's cooking so much that you asked her to be the manager. How about it?" Young Master Zhou jokingly said, "Then I can't bear this name for nothing. In the future, I hope I can eat for free in your restaurant." Of course. Even if there were no such thing, we wouldn't take your money anyway. Then it's settled. Suddenly, Zhou Ying thought of the Chow family and the county governor, who had their houses confiscated. She looked at young Master Zhou and asked, "Brother Zhou, are you going to sell all the manors and shops you have seized?" "Yes, is there anything you want? Since we plan to open a restaurant, we must have something to sell. I'm thinking of buying a small manor to grow some vegetables, raise some cattle and sheep, or something else to supply the restaurant. I'll go back and look into this matter, checking which manor is suitable." Young Master Zhou nodded. "Then I'll have to thank Brother Zhou in advance. A manor worth less than 2,000 taels of silver will do." "All right, I'll remember this," young Master Zhou affirmed. Soon, the food was served. Zhou Ying tasted each dish carefully and found they were all well made, except for the fatty oil inside the red braised pork. She only ate one piece and couldn't eat any more. However, she didn't have the heart to pick on it, so she thought of taking another time to mention it to Manager Liu. Chapter 121 Planning. When they finally came out of the restaurant after having their fill, Zhou Ying realized that Manager Liu was not there, so she could only keep this matter in mind. After leaving the restaurant, they both asked around and found Dongxing Restaurant. Looking at the plaque that had been thrown to the ground and trampled on, as well as the broken window, the two looked at each other. Not only did they not feel the slightest bit of heartache, but they felt happy instead. It could be seen that the Chow family had angered the public. Therefore, there wouldn't be many people who would reject them taking the restaurant over. Zhou Ying took out her key and went to open the entrance. There were also 2 floors here, with the lobby on the first floor measuring about 100 square meters, which is very spacious indeed. However, the room was a mess now. Although the tables and chairs were not broken, they were overturned, with all kinds of dishes and plates everywhere. There was no place to stand at all. After that, the two of them spent 2 hours tidying and cleaning up the place. The couple sat down after all that. Gu Qingrui turned his head and said, "Babe, what do you want to sell after opening up? These tables and chairs are all made of the best quality elm wood. If we use them, we can save some money." Zhou Ying pondered and said, "Although General Zhou said that he's not afraid of us affecting Hongyun Restaurant's business, we can't be that thick-skinned. So I plan to sell hot pot and barbecue with a few signature dishes, just like our original World's Northwestern restaurant. This way, there won't be any conflict." "That's a good idea. Not only will we avoid clashing with Hongyun Restaurant, but we'll also have an easier time with our business." Gu Qingrui nodded in agreement. After that, the couple discussed how to arrange the seats and tools. They went straight to the second floor when they were almost done with their discussion. The second floor was a much simpler design, with 8 private rooms. There were even 3 tables with dishes still on them. Seeing this, Zhou picked up the undamaged ones and packed them up, putting them aside. Then, she cleared the tables and cleaned up the utensils in the back kitchen. She didn't expect the kitchen to be even more chaotic. What could be taken away had been taken away, and what couldn't be taken away had been smashed. Seeing this, the 2 of them were too lazy to clean up. In the end, the 2 of them found the warehouse, but there was not even a single vegetable leaf. Gu Qingrui looked at the messy footprints on the ground and said, "It seems that when those guys left, they took away the rest of the things. Most likely. But I have to say, Elder Qiao is such a failure, owning such a big restaurant but doesn't even have a single loyal worker." Zhou added. Gu Qingrui said, "That's why we must be cautious when choosing our workers in the future. We have to treat them well too." "Yeah, but I think buying a few coarse servants with death contracts is better. I don't want to be stabbed in the back in the future." "Then we will go with your suggestion. The Ming dynasty is very strict about managing servants with death contracts, which will definitely put us at ease." After that, the 2 of them went outside and hired 2 laborers to remove all the garbage from the restaurant. Once finishing up their work, the 2 were about to go home when a middle-aged man with a bag on his back walked in. "Uncle, what's the matter?" Gu Qingrui went up to him. "Young man, are you the new owner of this building?" "I'm a specialist in renovating, and I have more than 20 people working under me. Do you want us to renovate the place?" The middle-aged man proposed as he scanned the restaurant. "Of course, but I haven't decided what to do yet. Why don't you tell me your contact address, uncle? I'll look for you when I've decided." "That's fine too. My name is Zhang Dainiu. I live near the main street in the number 4 courtyard in the second alleyway. You'll know once you get there and ask around." The uncle turned around and left after giving his address. "The renovation here will cost at least 50 taels of silver," he added before leaving. "You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.